Please help me reach 1,500 subscribers. The phone rang while I stood at the kitchen sink, watching the last traces of sunset blur against the window. I hesitated before answering. It was late, and the house had finally settled into that familiar nighttime calm. My husband lay on the couch behind me, half asleep, the television murmuring softly like background noise to our routine. I dried my hands on a towel and picked up the phone, instinctively turning my body away, lowering my voice. "Did you make your decision?" the voice asked. I didn't recognize the number, but I recognized the feeling, the pull, the urgency, the past I had pretended was buried. Before I could stop myself, the answer slipped out. "Yes," I said. "I chose you." The words felt natural in my mouth. Too natural. It took a heartbeat for their meaning to land. And when it did, the room felt hollowed out. My chest tightened, not with excitement but with fear. Behind me, the television went silent. I turned slowly. My husband was standing now, the remote hanging loosely from his hand. His face held no anger, no shock, just understanding. He didn't ask what I meant. He didn't need to. He had heard enough. "I'll call you later," I whispered into the phone and ended the call. We stood there in silence so complete I could hear the refrigerator hum and the clock ticking above the stove. I opened my mouth, desperate to explain, to wrap what he'd heard in context and history and excuses. He lifted his hand gently. "Don't," he said. He looked at me the way someone looks at a place they once called home, realizing they no longer belong there. Then he turned and walked toward the bedroom. I followed, my mind racing ahead, rehearsing apologies that already sounded empty. He packed with calm precision, folding shirts, rolling socks, moving with the same care he'd always used. His composure terrified me more than anger ever could. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching years of our life disappear into a suitcase. "It's not what it sounded like," I said finally, hating how small my voice felt. He paused, nodded once. "It's exactly what it sounded like." He zipped the bag and lifted it. At the doorway, he stopped. For a moment I thought he might turn around, ask for an explanation, give me one last chance to undo everything. Instead he said, "I hope one day you understand why I can't stay." Then he left. The night stretched endlessly after that. I sat on the couch where he'd been resting just an hour earlier, staring at the dark television screen. I replayed the sentence again and again, searching for a version of it that didn't sound like betrayal. There wasn't one. The truth was messier than that moment alone. The call had been from someone I loved long before my marriage, before routines, before responsibility dulled excitement into habit. That love had never disappeared. It had only been hidden, waiting. When he came back into my life, it felt like waking a part of myself I had locked away. Loving someone silently is one thing. Choosing them out loud is another. And that sentence, "I chose you," was the line between thought and action. My husband heard me cross it. Days turned into weeks. I called. I texted. I left messages I knew would go unanswered. I told myself he just needed time, that surely he would come back so we could talk like two people who had built a life together. He never did. Friends eventually stopped asking how I was. Some avoided me. Others offered sympathy that cut deeper than judgment. At night, I lay alone, staring at the empty side of the bed, remembering how he used to reach for me in his sleep, like he was afraid I might disappear. I thought often about that sentence, how careless it had been and how honest. I realized then that the marriage didn't end because of another person. It ended because I had already chosen someone else long before the phone ever rang. Months later, I saw him unexpectedly at the grocery store. He looked different, older maybe, but steadier. He noticed me, hesitated, then offered a polite nod. We stood near the produce section, two strangers carrying the same history. "I'm sorry," I said, because there was nothing else left. He studied me briefly, then gave a small, tired smile. "I know. I never wanted you to hear it," I added. "I know that too," he said. "But I'm glad I did." That hurt more than anything, not because he was cruel but because he was right. He walked away with his cart, leaving me among apples and oranges, holding the echo of a sentence that changed everything. I learned then that marriages don't always end with shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes they end quietly, with a single sentence spoken into a phone, overheard by the one person who needed to hear it most. And sometimes the one who walks away is the one who finally understands the truth, while the one who stays behind is left to live with it.